Hey guys, it is me, the Emerald Sword. Welcome back to another video, where today I am bringing you another book review. And the book in question today is Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King. So, Nightmares and Dreamscapes is another one of those story collections. So the first one we read was If It Bleeds back in December of 2023, which was last year. And then, of course, the most recent one I reviewed for you guys was Night Shift, which was just like a month ago at this point. But now I have Nightmares and Dreamscapes, which is the third one that I have for you. So basically I have this bookmark here to basically show me all the stories. So let's start that, why don't we? Alright, so the first story here is Dolan's Cadillac. So Dolan's Cadillac is really interesting because it's about this guy who loses his wife to basically like a gang attack. This guy named Dolan just killed Elizabeth, the guy's wife, and now the guy is swearing revenge against him. So he travels out to the vast desert of Nevada to plot his revenge. And so that one is really interesting. It's actually one of the longer stories in there. It's like 50, 60 something pages. Well, actually, all the stories in there are quite long, but that one's certainly one of the better ones in there. And yeah, it's really enjoyable and it's really fun. but yeah, so Dolan's Cadillac, pretty good, pretty good. All right, so the second one we have here is The End of the Whole Mess. Alrighty, so The End of the Whole Mess basically goes as follows. This guy named Howard, he has a younger brother whose name I for some reason can't remember, so my apologies about that. But his brother is like super smart, like wicked smart. Like when his brother was really young, he made like an entire plane by himself and it flew pretty well. So anyway, years pass and as the kids grow up, the brother's like, hey, I have a really good idea that maybe if we like make this like super like distilled water that's like really clean and dump it down a volcano in Borneo, we could like save the world. And so Howard is like, okay, let's do that. And then stuff doesn't go too well. And I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, this one was certainly a more depressing one than Dolan's Cadillac. But I really liked it, you know. It was very entertaining. And actually the audiobook it was read by Matthew Broderick. So for any Ferris Bueller fans out there, that's pretty good. I'm a Ferris Bueller fan myself, so I found that pretty cool. But yeah, so The End of the Whole Mess, pretty solid, but also pretty depressing. All right, so the third one is Suffer the Little Children. So I think this is one of the most famous stories in this collection, and from my knowledge, I think this is the only one that people really like that well. And basically, Suffer the Little Children is about a teacher who teaches this like third grade class, I think it is. But all the students are kind of weird. Like they're evil or something. And so what she does is she hatches a plan to get rid of them. And of course, in Stephen King fashion, weird stuff happens along the way. Now, this one was very interesting. This was actually the first one that the audiobook read, and I will get to the audiobook in a second because that is quite the adventure. But yeah, so I really like this one. It's kind of your standard Stephen King, like it's kind of weird. There's like some supernatural stuff going on, and it's just really funny as well. Like I was just enjoying it the whole time. And it's also one of the shorter stories in there, which is very surprising knowing that all these are really long. So it's actually like the shortest, second shortest, I think. But anyway, yeah, so Suffer the Little Children, pretty good. Alrighty, so fourth one we have is The Night Flyer. Ooh, okay. So The Night Flyer is basically about these pilots who have a strange encounter with some sort of vampiric thing. Like, I'm not quite sure what the Night Flyer is. I think it's a vampire, and I think the story says that it's like a vampire type of thing, but I'm not truly convinced that it's a true vampire, because I think it's able to be shown in pictures and stuff. And so, yeah, that one's really interesting. I don't think it's also that long as well. It's kind of short, but it's super sweet, and it's just really fun. It's just about pilots getting interrupted by a vampiric creature. And of course, since I've read both Salem's Lot and Night Shift recently, I'm kind of getting into vampires at the moment because, you know, ooh, Halloween and all that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, Night Flyer, pretty good story. All right, so the fifth one we have is Popsy. So basically, Popsy is about this one guy. I don't remember what his name is. It started with an S. I am truly sorry about that. But anyway, apparently he's like some sort of like mob person or something. And so he finds this one kid who's asking for his Popsy, who's like his father or his grandfather or something. And then so he's like, get in my truck. I'll take you to your Popsy. And the kid's like, okay. Keep in mind you shouldn't do this, but this is a small child, so you know, what are you gonna do? So anyway, he takes the kid in his truck, and then he handcuffs the kid to his truck, and the kid's like let me out, let me out, let me out, you know. And so the guy's like, come on, stop fighting me, okay? Hey, if you surrender quietly, I'll stop a like they make a deal, and the kid's like, okay. But then suddenly Popsy comes out of nowhere, and Popsy's like this bird creature thing, which according to the notes section of Nightmares and Dreamscapes, Stephen King believes is also the Night Flyer. So that's pretty interesting, but even though Stephen King says he believes that, I'm not sure about it myself. But anyway, so yeah, in the end, the guy who kidnaps the child gets murdered, and Popsy, who is the child's grandfather, saves him and stuff, and that's pretty interesting. So Popsy, pretty good. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I did, and it was really fun. Alrighty, so the sixth story is It Grows on You. Now, so It Grows on You, I don't remember too much about what happens in it because it's mainly about like how this town is like kind of creepy and how it grows on you. It's like yeah, you may find this town creepy now, but after a while, you'll get used to the town and stuff. So I don't really have a lot to say about that one, but I mean it was short, I guess. I guess it was one of the shorter ones. And it was narrated by Stephen King, so that I guess helps it a little bit. But yeah, so It Grows on You. It's okay. Alright, so the next one we have is Chattery Teeth. Ooh, Chattery Teeth I actually do really like a lot. So it's this guy who stops at like this like restaurant gift shop thing, and he buys this pair of broken Chattery Teeth, like, you know, the ones where you wind them up and then they go like and they like hop around and stuff. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So basically, he takes them in his truck, and they're broken because, you know, why not? And while he's driving home, he picks up a hitchhiker who quickly, very quickly, might I add, really wants to murder him. Like, very quickly. And so he's about to get killed, you know, and then the Chattery Teeth come to life by themselves because it's Stephen King, of course, and then the Chattery Teeth kill the hitchhiker, which is very interesting, and I really enjoyed the story. Like, it's so fun, and also the story was narrated by Kathy Bates in the audiobook, who, of course, was Annie Wilkes and Misery and Dolores Claiborne in the Dolores Claiborne movie, and yeah, it was just so good. I really enjoyed it. It is a longer one, mind you, so if you don't like longer things, you might not like that one, but I really liked it. It was so fun and funny, and it was narrated by Kathy Bates. So, yeah, Chattery Teeth is pretty good. Alright, so the next one we have is Dedication. Okay, Dedication is one of those, like, super long ones. Like, it's one of the longer stories in the collection, and it's not great, I'm gonna say. It's basically about this one girl whose son grew up to be a novelist, and when she flips, like, through the pages or whatever, she finds that the book is dedicated to her. She's like, oh, that's nice. And then she starts giving like a whole backstory on like her husband and like how weird he was and stuff. And yeah, so it's a little too long for its own good, and it's just not really that interesting in the first place. So it's one of my least favorite stories in the collection, but I don't really hate any of them. Anyway, so Yeah, dedication is just fine, I guess. All right, the moving finger, that is next. Ooh, okay, so the moving finger, it is about this guy. His name is Howard Mitla. I actually remembered his name that time. And he finds a random finger in his bathroom drain. Like, it's not attached to anything. It's not just a person. It's just a finger. And so what he does is he just fights a finger, which is hilarious. So yeah, if you like people fighting fingers, go read The Moving Finger, I guess. It's pretty fun and hilarious. All right, and the next one is Sneakers. So Sneakers is a weird one. It's like this guy goes to the bathroom at his work, and then he just finds this like person in the stall next to him who just like hasn't moved in like a day or like 2 years or something, but he's always wearing these weird sneakers, you know? Yeah, so that's basically what Sneakers is. He just finds these weird pair of sneakers, and they're attached to someone who just hasn't moved in so long, and then he starts to get weird about it. It's like, okay. And so, yeah, if that interests you, go read Sneakers. It's certainly interesting. I can say that at least. All right. You know they got a heck of a band. So, I mean, obviously, I had to censor that a little bit because I don't like language, and of course Stephen King does. But if you know language words, you can probably guess what that story's called. Anyway, so this one is about a couple who is traveling in Oregon, and while they get lost in the woods or something, they come across this town called Rock and Roll Heaven, Oregon. And so like, okay, so it's a nice little town, just kind of peculiar name though. And so they go in to Rock and Roll Heaven, and then they stop to get something to eat. And they realize that the people working at the restaurant are deceased singers. Like either rock singers or country singers or whatever. But like they're deceased singers. And that's pretty interesting. So then they start to devise, how to escape the town and stuff. And then things go from there. So yeah, and it's also a longer story. I guess I should say that. It is a longer one, but it was entertaining. And of course, you have to have a lot of rock knowledge to know who these people are, which Stephen King does. So yeah, that one was certainly interesting. I was actually looking forward to get to that one the most because that was like the most like standout title that I saw in the story collection. So yeah, they got a heck of a band. Really interesting. Okay, the next one is Home Delivery. All right, so this one's a bit of a weird one. So it's basically the end of the world. There are zombies all across Little Tall Island and neighboring islands in Maine. And of course, we just saw Little Tall Island in Storm of the Century, which I have reviewed. So go watch that video if you haven't. But anyway, zombies are just everywhere, and this one girl is pregnant without her husband because he also died. And she's like, well, I'm going to have to give birth at home. It's going to have to be home delivery. But I will warn you, she doesn't give birth in the entire story. It's just leading up all to that, and it's really weird. So I don't know, that was just kind of disappointing to me, but it's fine, I guess. I like zombie tales, like Pet Sematary, and like Night of the Living Dead, and like stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff. So if you like zombies, I think you might like that one. So anyway, moving on, we have Rainy Season. Ooh, Rainy Season is possibly my favorite story of this collection, and certainly one of the weirdest. So basically, Rainy Season, it's kind of like they got a heck of a band, but it's this couple, this newlywed couple who just moved into this town and like getting acquainted with the citizens and stuff, and the citizens are like, you sure you want to be here? So like, yeah, we're fine. So then they go home, and then like every 10 years or so, this weird rainstorm happens, or like every 7 years, or whatever it is. Some amount of time later, a weird storm happens. Anyway, so it turns out that storm is raining toads. Yes, you heard me right. Raining toads. So yeah, there's just these giant, like, modified toads that like crash through metal signs and windows and stuff. And if they see you, they try to bite you and stuff. And so the couple has to deal with that. But yeah, as I said, Rainy Season is probably my favorite story in the whole collection just because of how random it is. Like, Stephen King's made a lot of things scary, like cars and dogs and lawnmowers and stuff, but I've never seen him make Toad scary before, and now I have, and that is so weird. So, Rainy Season, pretty fun. Alright, so the next one we have is My Pretty Pony. So I think this title is a little misleading. You probably think it's going to be like something about a horse. I thought it was as well. But it turns out that My Pretty Pony is actually about the essence of time and how time is moving forward and stuff. And it's like about appreciating what time you have and everything. And yeah, so as I said, that's a little misleading. I thought it was going to be about an actual horse or I guess a pony, but it was actually about how time is inevitable, which is kind of depressing. It was fine. A little misleading, but it was fine. All right, next one is Sorry Right Number. So Sorry Right Number is actually similar to Storm of the Century, in which it is a screenplay, or I guess in this case, a teleplay. It's basically about like this girl, something weird is going on, so she asks her husband to check it out, and then he dies, and then weird stuff happens. I can't really say any spoilers because I don't really know what happened myself. It's just really odd, and it was a teleplay, and actually the audio version of the teleplay and the book version of the teleplay are very different, so I will say there's your warning for that because they are very different, and I was so confused the whole time. But Sorry Right Number, since it's a teleplay, it's not too long, I guess, but it was interesting to say the least. All right, so the next one is the 10 O'Clock People. Okay, the 10 O'Clock People is one of the weirder ones. Basically, it's about these two guys who like are walking around in a city, and then they just see these random people just waiting outside of buildings and stuff like 10 o'clock in the morning. And this one is actually also quite similar to Quitters Inc. from the Night Shift collection, because there's a lot of like, hey, did you quit smoking? Yeah, I quit smoking. Oh, I'm trying to quit smoking. Like stuff like that, like about quitting smoking, which is what Quitters Inc. was about. And so, yeah, basically the 10 O'Clock People is just a weird society of people who hang around places at 10 o'clock in the morning, I guess. Yeah, that one was a strange one. I didn't quite understand that one. So if I'm confusing you, that's because I'm confused myself. I'm not trying to confuse you, but I don't know what's going on myself. All right, so anyway, the next one is Crouch End. Okay, so Crouch End is basically, it takes place in London, and it's about this, I guess it's like this detective duo who find out that this woman is missing her husband, and so they go try to find him, and then of course in true Stephen King fashion, stuff gets really weird and messed up, and then I think he like died or something. So I mean, yeah, there's your spoiler alert. He kind of died or something. That was actually the second story that the audio read, which I know was really weird because Suffer the Little Children was the first one and Crouch End was the second one. So, yeah, that's really weird. I don't remember too much about Crouch End for that reason, but it was certainly interesting, and it was read by Tim Curry, so that was really cool. Okay, The House on Maple Street. Ooh, another one I like. So this one is basically about these 4 children whose mother has married this other guy who they don't like very much, and he doesn't like them very much. And so one day in the house, they discover something weird about the house, that there's some sort of timer. And so what the oldest child decides to do is he decides to basically kill his stepfather because let's be honest, he's probably going to kill their mother if they don't do something about him. So he traps him in his office and then waits for the house's timer to tick to 0, and then it goes sky high. What happened? Did it explode? Don't know. I was confused about that ending, but it was certainly entertaining because I've never heard of, well, actually I have, but it's not a lot that I read books about people being trapped in a room before they explode. So that's kind of funny. Anyway, House on Maple Street, pretty funny. All right, so the next one we have is The Fifth Quarter. The Fifth Quarter, I think, is some sort of like military one, and I'm not like into the military and all that. I don't really know about all that, but I don't really remember The Fifth Quarter that much because not a lot happens. I think it's a rather short story, so yeah, that's another shorter one, and it's just about like this army guy who like holds these two guys at gunpoint, and then stuff goes wrong, and then you're at the end. So yeah, I'm sorry that I can't really tell you what it's about because I'm kind of confused about it myself. All right, anyway, the next one we have after that is The Doctor's Case. Okay, so this one stuck out to me because not only was it narrated by Tim Curry as well, but this is also a Sherlock Holmes tale told from the perspective of Dr. Watson. So, I mean, I don't remember who the guy is that wrote Sherlock Holmes. Arthur something, I think. And anyway, I guess Sherlock Holmes was in public domain by the time that happened or whatever. So Stephen King decided to write a Sherlock Holmes tale from the perspective of Watson. And it's like years in the future after Sherlock Holmes has passed. And Watson is like, hey, here's what happened when I solved a case instead of Sherlock Holmes. So that was pretty interesting. It's kind of random having a Sherlock Holmes book in here, but hey, I mean, if it works, it works. All right, so now we are going to the second page of contents because there are just that many. And the next one is Umney's Last Case. So Umney's Last Case is actually similar to The Doctor's Case, in which Mr. Umney is a detective in the late 30s. But the twist is that today isn't like normal days. People are getting mad at him. People are retiring, like, you know, stuff that he would never expect to happen. And then he finds out that this one guy, who I guess owns the building that he went to, is actually an author of his books. Yeah, Umney is living inside of a book, and the author basically went inside the book and then switched lives with Umney and then cast Umney out, and then now he's living in the book. And so Umney's writing this after he got out and stuff, and he's like, oh, the real world is actually pretty bad, so I'm gonna come find you, author guy. I'm gonna come find you and get my life back. So yeah, that's really interesting, right? And then we don't know if he ever gets his life back or not, because that's where the story ends. But it's pretty interesting, and I would love to see a sequel to that to see how he gets his life back. But that's so interesting. He finds out he's in a book, and then he goes to the real world. It's so fun. But yeah, so I really liked that one. Alrighty, and then Head Down. So Head Down isn't really a story at all, but it's actually a nonfiction essay on Stephen King's son's baseball team. So yeah, Stephen King decided to have a very long story, mind you, of how his son's baseball team won the championship. And that's about it. So if you're a fan of baseball, I think you might like that. But if not, like me, because I don't really particularly like sports, you'll just find it more like boring than anything. So if you like sports, then go read Head Down. Anyway, so the last story here is Brooklyn August. So Brooklyn August is just a poem. That's it, it's just a poem. So, yeah. And then there is like a brief thing in the notes. It's like the Beggar and the Diamond, which is, I guess, like a translated version of a story in Hindu. And Stephen King translated it for some reason. And yeah, so that's it. Anyway, so those are all the stories. But Nightmares and Dreamscapes is a very odd book. I mean, it's Stephen King, so you probably already expected that. But it is a very odd book. So, yeah, now the audiobook thing. So, of course, the order of stories that I gave you in this is the order that it is in the book. But the audiobooks were something weird because they were actually in like 3 volumes originally, and I guess they just took all 3 and then just combined them into one giant audiobook. Because none of the stories were in order. it's like, yeah, the first story was Suffer Little Children, which was the third story, and then the second one was Crouch End, and that was the 17th story. And then like you see, we're flipping around all of them and stuff, and so that was kind of confusing back when I first started reading it. I was like, wow, that's really confusing. So I would like have to pause the audio and then like search through the book to find the story and then just resume from there. So I would recommend that if you read it, either only do the book version or only do the audio version, because you will get very confused otherwise, like I did. And also the Sorry Right Number one, the book version, as I said, was very different from the audio version. I mean, there were like a few lines that overlapped, but they were very different for the most part. So yeah, that's all I can say about that. But anyway, so Nightmares and Dreamscapes, it's weird, but it's fun, and it's certainly interesting. And it will certainly leave you thinking about things and scratching your head and all that. So I enjoyed this story collection. I'm aware that not a lot of people do. A lot of people say it's one of the worst story collections that Stephen King has made. I've only read 3 of them, so I really wouldn't know. It's probably my least favorite of the 3 so far, though, so I guess that's something. But, I mean, I guess I could rank them when I read all the story collections. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, anyway, that's about all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for making it this far. I really appreciate it when you guys watch my videos this far. But if you like the video, leave a like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please consider doing that. But yeah, that is all the time I have for you today. I will let you guys go now. And I've been Ben from the Armored Sword, and I will see you guys next time.